Welcome back to Kandi Unfiltered, the podcast where real life meets real talk at the table of truth and transformation. I'm your host, Kandi Cox, and today's episode is one you really don't want to miss. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your health, exhausted by diet culture, or just plain tired of being tired, this one is for you. I'm joined today by my dear friend, Elene Murray. She is a powerhouse of wisdom, grit, and grace. She's a wife, mama, grandmama, a rancher, and a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who has walked the hard road of reclaiming her health, dropping 80 pounds and gaining back her life. From her kitchen mantra of just give me 15 minutes to guiding women over 50 who are battling autoimmune issues, weight struggles, or digestive distress, Elene's story is filled with hope and hands-on advice. But before we begin, I need to make a quick disclaimer. This information shared in this episode is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace professional medical advice. Elene and I are sharing what has personally worked for us in hopes that it will encourage you on your own wellness journey. Always consult with a qualified medical professional before making any health changes. We're just here to share our story.
This episode is brought to you by Pretties and Grace, a faith-based boutique offering high-quality home decor and gifts at prices for every budget. From stunning vases and greenery to statement seasonal pieces for every holiday, plus the sweetest gifts, they truly have it all. Pretties and Grace has 3 locations, their main store in the heart of downtown Benton, along with shops in Malvern and Fayetteville. You can also browse and shop online at prettiesandgrace.com. A huge thank you to Pretties and Grace for sponsoring this episode.
Elene, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, ma'am.
I am so excited to have you here. So we've kind of walked a journey together for a couple years, and I just want to take our listeners kind of through your experience and a little bit of mine and what we've done and accomplished. But, it's good to start with kind of what your childhood and your family health history was.
Okay, well, I was born in 1955. So I ate a lot of Oreos, but I had to climb up in the top of the cabinet to get them. And I didn't like the chocolate part, so I just used my teeth and scraped out all the white part.
The cream is the best.
Yeah.
The cream's the best. That's why I really have a love for double stuff Oreos, right? When those came out, I thought, oh man, this is the best thing ever.
I have a grandson that's the same way. And if we have a birthday party and anyone leaves the icing on their plate, he's like, I'll eat it for you.
See, and that's so funny, Elene, because I don't like icing. I do not like icing, but it's something about that cream in the Oreo that it's really the only store-bought cookie that I've ever liked. So there you go.
Well, I also used to eat those oatmeal cream pies because they had that white goo in the middle too.
That too.
But I had urinary tract infections all the time, bladder infections, kidney infections. Someone just posted on Facebook, what is a food or something you ate that traumatized you as a child? And it was this thick banana flavored antibiotic that I had to take for kidney infections. And I remember I had to stand over the sink as I was drinking it down because it would come straight up. And so I was little and they're like, can you just swallow a pill? Sure. Okay, we're done with this.
Yes.
Banana goo. But
it's funny you say that because just the other day, my daughter Mallory and I were talking about something very similar to that. But you know what mine was? Pepto-Bismol.
Oh.
And I probably was, oh goodness, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that area. And I remember
It's just making my throat feel yucky.
I know. I remember I was at my cousin's house, and I was, not feeling good. And back then when you didn't feel good, you still went outside to play,
Of
right?
course.
So my aunt gave me some Pepto-Bismol. I get on my bike, and we're, riding bikes, and it's in the middle of the summer, and let's just say the Pepto-Bismol came back up.
Yeah.
I have not taken Pepto-Bismol since.
Good.
Not since. It traumatized me.
We have some other stuff that we could suggest.
Right, exactly.
Well, anyway, I got the kidney infections a lot when I was a kid. And then as a young adult and a young married woman, and I bet I got like 3 or 4 maybe urinary tract infections a year. So I have taken a lot of sulfa and a lot of macrobid.
Yeah.
Then I found out as I got older that when you heal one mucosal lining in your body, the other ones heal as well. So I got a clue about that mucosal lining when I would drink coffee, and it would make me have a bladder spasm. And I thought, well, I have a urinary tract infection, but I didn't.
Right.
And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. And I'm super aware. So I'm really, always putting the puzzle pieces together to figure out what exactly is going on here.
Right.
And go about it that way. And through all the years and with my kids and all that, I'm just pretty much to the point where I have a doctor if I want to have blood work for my insurance and all that. But I take that information and use it myself. And then I work with other practitioners if I have issues that might give me other insights and run different labs than what the doctors would run. And of course, that's self-pay.
Right.
But that's okay with me because I keep my insurance, my deductible really high so that I can spend the money that I would have spent on insurance on modalities that I really believe work.
Right. So, what I hear you say, like growing up, it was, the all-American junk food diet, right?
That it was just invented.
Right.
Like TV dinners.
Right.
We never ate out, and we didn't have a bunch of money. So it was a bunch of beans, rice, gumbo, those kinds of things. But, we were like,
TV dinners, right.
And my mom did buy those little junky 3 for $1 pot pies. Remember those chicken pot pies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 for $1.
So you went through a time where you had a wake-up call and on your health and on your weight. So talk about that.
Well, as I got married, my first argument with my husband was that he was going to eat white bread and I was going to serve whole wheat bread. And if he wanted to go to the store his own self and get what he wanted, he was perfectly welcome to do that. But I wasn't going to be a party to that, bringing, just crap food into the house.
Right.
And so pretty ironic and pretty telling of the time because he had some health problems that I didn't understand, but there was no internet then. This was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just had to read books and I figured out how to fix it, but I didn't know about getting to the root of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so as it progressed over time, turns out that he had celiac. So he shouldn't have been having that bread at all. And he tells the story how I tricked him into marrying him because I made Swiss braided bread and it was luscious. So,
well, a way to a man's heart is through his belly.
That's right. So anyway, him having the autoimmune issues really kickstarted my interest in this. And
Right.
because the doctor told him, you have inflammation, but we don't know where it's coming from. Here, take this prednisone for the rest of your life and make sure you have plenty on hand because this, whatever you have, is going to get worse.
Right.
And call me at a moment's notice if it does. And I'm like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We-
You know,
And I thought, we have inflammation and we don't know where it's coming from. It just hit me. I'm like, then you're dumb as a rock. You know a lot of details about one thing, but you can't see the big picture.
right. Right. I remember, Elene, going through, like, we had the health autonomy group, and that I have lupus and I have Sjogren's, and at 23, when I was diagnosed with lupus, that was a long time ago, by the way. Again, there was no internet. I went to the library to read what was lupus. And then, I'm starting, like, should I be planning my funeral? Like,
That's how we were too.
Yeah, exactly. And, but one thing I was thinking about this when I was preparing for us to sit down together today. I remember him telling me that he goes, well, you have parasites. And that scared the dickens out of me. But that's where it was left. It was not, what do you do about that?
Oh, gosh.
And now we hear about it all the time.
All the time.
And we know that parasites are,
ubiquitous.
Yes, and they're connected to just about every disease. And he was anyways, I go back to that. I remember when he said that. I'm trying to go through at 23 years old, what is lupus and what does it mean that I have parasites? Like, he never told me what to do about parasites. He just started sending me to a rheumatoid doctor.
Yeah.
And I thought that's more important than the parasites,
Right.
But it just really creeped me out. Like, is that going to be, am I going to be pooping parasites? Like, what does that mean? Does that live within me, And so I was thinking back to that time, because now, being educated so much on it, I think, why did he not make that a priority for me to
They
address
don't
the
have
parasites?
the testing protocols.
Right.
And they don't
And
they're not really set up.
Yeah, this was in the early 90s.
Right. Like roundworms or something like that,
Right.
they test for.
Right.
But like, there are certain things that we do in the functional space to provoke the parasites so that they do pick up in the store.
Right.
So.
Right. And so your husband having those issues, and probably your weight gain, that really became your passion to spur what you do today.
Well, it did, because I was referring people a lot, like gluten is such a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, my husband almost just had a panic attack when he found out that was the problem. In fact, he went to...
He didn't want to hear that, did
he? He went to Dr. Betsy Hendricks, and it was sort of a roundabout way, because this is exactly the conversation between him and his doctor. Well, there is a doctor that some of our peers go to, but we don't usually recommend her to our patients. And when he told me she said that, I was like, oh my gosh. Mm. And that was the same doctor, Dr. Betsy Hendricks, that I had researched before, and was pretty much the only one in Central Arkansas that I thought might have the answer. Right. That was a think out of the box kind of a person. And she practices integrative medicine. Right. And she's in Conway. And anyway, it worked out that it didn't have to come from me. It came from his doctor.
Right.
So we ended up going to Dr. Hendricks, and she mentioned that it would probably be gluten, but she didn't want to say anything until the lab work came back. And on the way home, I said, well, do you want to just go ahead and, get rid of that, just so you can get a jump start on Oh, no.
She didn't say that that's what it was.
That's exactly right. He's like, no, I'm waiting for the lab work. So anyway, we know that it stimulates opioid receptors in the brain. So you can see why people are so, I'm just not going to give up my bread.
Right.
But we now also know that it's sprayed with Roundup right before it's harvested. So it's pretty rich in it. And they also, all enriched grains, wheat, they enrich it with folic acid. And now we know that 40% of the population, at least, has the MTHFR gene polymorphism that can't use folic acid. Folic acid is the synthetic for folate.
Right.
And folate is in grains, but not after it's...
Right, they strip it out. It's so crazy.
And then add the synthetic.
They strip the good stuff out and then add the synthetic things that we can't use. We can't use it.
And not only that, it blocks the receptors.
Yes.
So you can't get the folate out of your food.
Right.
So you're just poisoning yourself double. And it's in all prenatal vitamins.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's setting people up for disaster where they need folate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in my case, methylfolate, because I'm one of those people, but 40% of the population is. So it's something that we don't just go willy-nilly with.
Right.
You know,
right.
It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
So, so that's that. And also they add bromine to it.
Yes.
And so bromine is one of the halides along with chlorine, fluoride, and iodine. Why are we having so many thyroid problems? Because those other halides block the receptors so that we don't pick up the iodine that's in our food. So that's one of the big problems with fluoridated water.
Right.
And enriched grains.
Right. Right. Which, you know, here in Arkansas, we, during the legislative session,
I was hopeful.
I was hopeful too. Actually, Senator Clint Penzo brought that bill to really take it to where we as a community could vote on if we wanted fluoride in
instead of it being mandated by the health department.
Right. And I was a huge supporter of that bill. Unfortunately, it did not pass.
I don't think it even got out of committee.
Yeah, it did not. And so I was very disappointed in that. You know, I have another show that I do, Arkansas First Reports, and I was also live streaming at the Capitol during that time, and I was trying to get people to be engaged, to call their representatives and their senators, because I was putting out all these different studies about the dangers of fluoride and what it does in the brain of children, and even with pregnant women.
Yeah.
And I was pointing people to the research and the data that was out there in hopes that people would be calling and emailing their representatives, because it really was an important bill. Unfortunately, Arkansas missed the boat on that one.
Yep. I think our medical board might need a little dose of castor oil.
Yeah, yeah. Castor oil is something else I love. I love my castor oil. But let's talk about how food, environment, genetics, and lifestyle all kind of play together in our health.
Okay. Well, although I'm trained as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, through Reed Davis's program, they work on the premise, test, don't guess. But as I worked with all my clients, I realized that the foundational things were always the foundational things for every person. And so I thought, why are we running all these labs at the beginning?
Right.
Why don't we do all the foundational things first,
And see.
and then when it plays out and your body heals tenaciously,
Yeah.
and we are perfectly made.
Right.
Get those things in place that we have to do anyway, and then we might not need expensive labs.
Right.
So that's how I work.
Right.
And I'm following more and more. It's so complicated and it's so hard to learn. But if anyone has followed Logan at Me and Miggy Market.
Yeah, Logan Duvall, and he has a podcast. He's with Me and Miggy Market. You can find him on Facebook, and he has a podcast, and he puts out.
It's called Sowing Prosperity.
Yes, that's right, Sowing Prosperity, and he puts out amazing information.
Amazing.
Almost every day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And he got started because his son had cancer.
Yes.
And he just wanted to know everything he could possibly know.
Right.
And so he's done the deep dive. And I met him several years ago because we raise cattle and they were looking for, sustainable agriculture people to connect with for Me and Miggy Market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're kind of far away and we don't fit his profile because we sell by the quarter and half and all that instead of by the cut.
Right.
So it just didn't fit. But I really liked him then. And Laura Holloway, who is in Conway, she had the Blue Barn Bakery, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're kind of teamed up too. So Logan, I was looking for Jack Cruz interviews on Podbean. And here comes Logan. And I'm like, now I'm going to start taking Logan seriously if he's interviewing Jack Cruz.
Yes, and he actually, I interviewed Logan on my Arkansas First Reports podcast.
Good.
Yeah, and it is a great podcast. While we're talking, I may look up the name of that podcast so that I can point people to it. But he had a very fascinating interview, like a couple weeks after the podcast that we did together, where he had Mel Gibson on.
Yep.
So, yeah, I love the information that Logan puts out.
Yep, and he goes to the top.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't mess around with low hanging fruit.
No,
he goes
not.
to, yep, I know so and so that's the top doctor in immunology, and I'm like, okay, well, good, Logan.
Yeah.
So anyway, when he interviewed Jack Cruz, I always wanted to listen to Jack Cruz's because he's so smart. He's a neurosurgeon, and he moved to El Salvador for the weather and for the sunlight.
Right.
His main thing is lighting.
Yes.
Sunlight.
Yeah.
And so he has it broken down to not just the biochemistry, but the biophysics is what he focuses more on.
Right.
And he has found that the sunlight in the morning turns on the POMC protein that affects your ability to burn fat.
Yes.
So I'm not missing any more mornings outside.
Mornings outside with the sun in your eyes, no sunglasses.
No contacts.
No contacts, and your bare feet on
the grass.
That's right. On the grass.
That's right.
And that podcast, just so if anyone wants to go and look at that podcast, again, that's under Arkansas First Reports. And the name of that podcast episode was Food, Freedom, and Medical Choice. Logan Duvall on raw milk, ivermectin, and naturopathy in Arkansas. So
good. He is not afraid to dive deep.
Right. No, he's not.
And he's not giving medical advice.
No.
He's sharing what he learned in his deep dives. And he has a very good grasp on the information.
Yes.
He doesn't have a medical
himself with experts.
Yep.
And he one of the things that I appreciate about him is he always puts out what I call the receipts, right? He
does.
puts the studies out there.
Yep. Bang, bang, bang,
Yeah.
bang, bang.
Right.
Yep.
So
That's right.
Okay.
So you can argue with him or you can not argue with him. Argue with the research. No need in arguing with Logan because all he's doing is quoting the research.
Right. So we know that what we put in our bodies and the environment
put on our bodies.
Right. That was a real fascinating thing for me to learn. Several years ago, I did the HCG diet.
Yeah.
Worked really well for me personally. I felt amazing on it. But one of the things that I learned in doing that was about what you put on your body. Well, this sister is all about some lotions, and so
you can't use that on that guy.
Yeah, you can't. And so, but it fascinated me. I was like, what? Like, I know this is our biggest organ,
but
our
still,
skin
it makes that much. Just some oil in the lotion makes that much difference. Because let me just say, that's a completely oil and fat-free diet.
Yes, it is.
It's higher in carbohydrates and low in protein.
Yeah. Well, and so anyways, it was something that I needed. It really helped me kind of re-kick my health back then. And I felt great on it. But that was a very fascinating thing that I learned through going through that. So what we put on our body.
Because it sinks right in.
Yes. And then our environment and the things that are put out in our environment.
Well, what irks me is, my biggest pet peeve, the victim mindset. And once we are told, you have this, you have that, somehow we internalize that and we feel like that's our fate.
Right.
That's not our fate. Genes are a tiny portion of the picture, the whole picture that we have, including everything, every thought we have.
Right.
Changes our hormones.
Yes. It's when you go to God's word, right? When you go to God's word, it's incredible because he gives us all the tools that we need, and he miraculously made us and miraculously put us together and gave us the things to heal. He's given us everything to take care of our health, but we have been lazy.
We live in a culture of death.
Yes.
That is designed. That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
Designed.
Podcast.
That's right. That is designed for ease.
Yeah.
We're worn out with our jobs.
Yes.
Earning barely the minimum.
Yeah.
We are steeped in the culture of we have to have this, you have to have that. Mm-hmm. So we're constantly running, trying to earn enough money to buy this, that, and the other of those things, which we think are completely critical for a modern lifestyle.
Right.
And we're worn out.
Right.
We don't understand how critical the morning routine is.
Yeah.
Or cooking your own food.
Right.
Or
we have that
relaxed family time with no screens.
Right.
This business of getting phones out of the classroom, okay, but how in the world did they ever get in the classroom?
Yeah.
I cut no quarter for that.
Right.
Okay, but just do it. There's no discussion about it. It's ridiculous.
Right. It's we live in a world where everything is fast paced. Everything is instant gratification. So, for a mom, you've got kids and they're in sports. And so you're working and then you're picking them up and then you're going to sports or, you're running here, running there. And so we're going to pick up fast food. We're going to, so not many people eat at home anymore. It's always a run.
So what's the expectation?
Right.
The expectation is to do a whole bunch of sports.
Right.
And to run yourself crazy.
Right.
Instead of family time. A wonderful thing is family cooking time.
Right.
Oh, and we have tiny, tiny backyards now where kids don't ever go out and play. They stay inside. Well, that's just honestly a recipe for disaster.
Right. Well, and we see that, our health is not just our physical being, but it's our spiritual being, it's our emotional being, our mental health. And we do have to have that, as I say, quiet your spirit before the
Yep.
Lord and get, for me, it's really taking that time to be quiet before the Lord, getting God's word. That is really a must. And then, we have kids that are being brought up on a screen. If it's not sports, it's a screen. It's
That's right.
of some type.
And let's go right back to Jack Cruz on that,
Yeah.
because the blue lighting in
Yes.
LED
That's what I was going
and
towards.
the
Yeah.
screens
Yeah. All environment.
completely disrupt your health.
Yes.
Completely. Now that I listen to Logan's podcast, my windows are open when I'm driving. My sunroof is open when I'm driving.
Yeah.
My hair looks like a heathen, but it's worth it to me because I want the full spectrum of light.
Yes.
And let me just say, I love staying up late.
Yeah.
When I started going to bed on time, and I also got myself a grounding sheet, because they find now that it takes 4 hours to ground.
Yeah.
30 minutes doesn't get it.
Right.
So the grounding sheet is
Yeah.
pretty critical.
Right.
I wake up alert.
Yes.
But if
Yeah.
I go to bed from 10 to 2, now we learned that in the FDN training, is your critical time. We are diurnal beings, and there's no getting away from that. You can go, well, I'm a night owl. No, you're not.
No.
No, you're not. How I explain all this environment and food and all that to my clients is this. Put your mind in the place of a caveman. Okay. What would your life be like? You'd be kind of hot sometimes. You'd be kind of cold sometimes. You'd be outside most of the time. You would be pitch black at night when you're sleeping unless there was a fire.
Right.
Okay. What would you eat? You would eat wild meats. You would eat whatever you picked and harvested, and it wouldn't be no banana that's this big and super, super sweet.
Right.
And you sure wouldn't have had that up in the northern latitudes.
Right.
So going back to eating locally and eating seasonally,
Right.
because that food is information to your body.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So if you ever feel like, in the winter, I just cannot eat a salad. I just can't make myself do it. Listen to your body.
Yeah.
In the summer, you feel like eating a salad
Right.
and lighter meats.
Right. And in the wintertime, you go for those, the steak, and, you want the potatoes.
Root
you want
vegetables.
The root
That's right.
vegetables. That's
And
right.
think about that. Think about early and primitive people, what they ate in their area. That's your genetics.
Right.
That's where you were genetically selected to thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
So people with dark skin, they're coming from the equatorial regions, right?
Right.
So they're going to be more lighter proteins, their leafy vegetables, tropical fruits, those kinds of things energize those people because they're genetically selected. That's what their ancestors ate for generations and generations back, because the people who didn't thrive on that didn't live.
Right.
They didn't thrive enough to have offspring for a lot of generations. So the same way up in the north, like I'm all Northern Europe.
Right.
So what should I be eating?
Right. Right. Look at what's growing around you locally.
Right.
In your local area throughout different seasons, and eat your whole foods, like, the cow, the chicken.
And that's what I tell my clients.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what is it? How do I decide what to eat? First thing, it has to look like it came from an animal.
I say all the time.
The other thing is, it has to look like it came from a plant, not some goopy confabulation that you can't tell what's in it.
Right. Right. I mean, it goes down to the most simplest things. If it wasn't around 100 years ago, you don't need it.
Yeah, even farther back.
Yeah, even further back. But yeah.
Because they were processing grains 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Ubiquitously.
Right. You know what? One of the things that was really hard for me, and we talked about this during our, autonomy class that we had. But one of the things that was really hard for me to wrap my mind around is corn. You think corn, vegetable, good for you, and
corn on the cob is a vegetable.
I love corn, but anytime I eat corn, even on the cob or popcorn, which they've always said is like the healthy, a healthy snack, it blows me up anytime I eat corn.
Yeah. And corn is harder to get out of your diet. Yeah. Corn is harder to get out of your diet than wheat. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it comes
But if you look at the documentary King Corn, there's these two guys who just were trying to figure out how to grow corn. Right. So a farmer let them have, I think it was 1 square acre, and they, teamed up with him, and then they took that out into the culture, and the statistics were mind-boggling about how, okay, if the cattle eat the corn, and then this, like that, every bite you eat has corn in it. Right. because it's so ubiquitous, and we know that it is subsidized to keep food costs low.
Right.
But as we do that, we have a bunch of people that are eating cheap food that's making them sick, and then they're spending extra money or tax money at the doctor and fueling that whole industry.
Right.
At the same time that they're giving up hope because they have the victim mindset and they don't realize that they have control of the situation. But hard choices have to be made.
Right. And what's really frustrating to me is that, as a family trying to eat healthy, stay on a whole foods diet, and is you can clip coupons all day long for everything on the aisles, right? Everything that comes in a can, everything that comes in a box, it's easy. You can find a coupon for everything. But your outside aisle, your outside perimeter of the grocery store, where your whole foods are, where your meats, your your fresh vegetables, your fresh fruits, nothing. You're hoping that they go on sale. And that's really, it sets up a culture where, if you have a struggling mom and she's really wanting to do good, but she can't afford the parameter, then she's clipping coupons. She's doing whatever she can to clip coupons.
What happens there is this. Convenience is a huge issue.
Well, it is, but finances is also a huge issue.
It's a huge issue. And however, a bushel of corn, I don't know what that's going for in the commodity market right now, but I can tell you that a box of Cheerios or, whatever other corn pops or whatever,
right?
It is the most expensive food that there is.
It is, except for the fact that you can get coupons, and you can get your coupons can double.
But it's expensive. In that, there's no nutrition in it.
Right. There's no nutrition. It affects your health. But I work with women that struggle in life every day. Yep. And so, they're looking at, what do I have in my pocketbook right now that I can spend money on to feed my children?
Like a volume.
Right.
To get the belly full.
Right. To get the belly full, to put food in our cabinets, and it comes down to the junk because they can get coupons for that. You got the sales, then you got the coupons, and then you can get the double coupons. And so, and it's easy. There's a lot that goes into that. But one of the things that is frustrating is the fact that, you're not able to get the coupons for, the parameter of the grocery store. No. And so it is a little bit more on the pocketbook heavier on the pocketbook.
And that's
in
where
the
we have
instant
to have
gratification.
government that leads the way on that, because they set the tone for every step down the way.
Right. Well, when
It has to be a cultural priority.
Right. And when you're on, when you're on food stamps and WIC or things like that, you're looking at what can you get for the most to put in your pantry, because you've got to feed your family for the week or for the month. And so all of those things affect our health, all of that. And I think, like, I've taken a couple moms and just tried to show them just simple things of how to do, like buying a thing of potatoes and how to make potato soup. And it can be stretched.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And how you can take a potato and you make a stuffed potato with your meats and your cheese, and how to do
Broccoli.
Yeah, broccoli, things like that, to try to stretch it and teach how to be a little bit, think outside of the box of what
That's pretty huge.
of what they've been accustomed to in growing up, right? Because many times I'm working with young ladies that they're a product of the environment that they've grown up in, and so it's learning how to do something different, right?
Think differently about what your. I'm a big lover of unrealized resources,
Right.
and so let's just but you have to have energy to be able to do that.
Yeah, and energy comes from our food source. That's right.
And it comes from sunshine.
Yes.
And it comes from real sleep.
Yes.
And realizing that you are that diurnal being, and that from 10 to 2 is your restorative time. And if you miss that, you're not going to get it from 1 to 5.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
That's your healing time.
Well, for our listeners, what is functional diagnostic nutrition? What does that actually mean?
That was Reed Davis came up with that name. Okay. He was the person in enormous, huge, I think it was a chiropractic clinic in California. And he was the interface between the doctors and the patients. And so he would take all the lab work and all the everything and come to the client with that other patient, and then help them develop a whole lifestyle based on that. And what he found was diet, rest, exercise, sleep, and supplements, and he called it DRESS, dress for success, and those foundational things.
Right.
So, and now, they teach, how to look at the labs, how to correlate the labs, not interpret the labs at all, but correlate, oh, this is here and that's there. Well, does that correlate with your symptoms? Okay, if it does, then we develop a plan, like, how's your sleep? Okay, you can't go to sleep okay, so now let's look at the lighting. Let's look at a possible grounding sheet. Let's look at your routine before bed. Let's look at anything else that might, like your cortisol levels, anything that might affect your sleep, okay?
Right.
Because that's foundational.
Right.
And same thing with diet and all the rest. And so for the diet part, it includes like food sensitivity labs and those things. And then, each one of those things, you go into a deep dive to, like I tell my clients, I'm going to know you very well, and you're going to know me very well. And if we can't be like that, then I can't help you.
Right.
Because there's insight.
Right.
And I found that working with people personally, that intuition was quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because once you know someone, you understand that all illness has an emotional component.
Yeah.
And so I had one client, for instance, she was working out and she was, everything. She was the super mom, and she had kids from her previous family, and now she had a new husband, and they were trying to get pregnant, and she was doing in vitro and miscarrying. And I said, get out the book Boundaries and
One of my
read that.
favorite books.
It is
ever.
It's a real gut puncheroo.
Yeah.
And she goes, she goes, it's on my nightstand right now. I will get it out and read it again. And she was telling me how stressful her job was and blah, blah, blah. And I said, talk to your boss. I said, I even said, is God telling you that you cannot handle a baby in your life? There's no room for a baby in your life right now. Long pause. Next week we talked, and she was working from home in her bed. So she had the talk. She read the book, and she realized, and lickety-split, she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And she held the baby, and the baby's like 2 years old or so now. So if I don't know the person, I can't help them.
Right.
Because there's these little nuancy things that you're like, wait, that.
And I imagine in the moment that was a really difficult thing for her to hear.
It was. She paused. Long pause.
She probably didn't like you in that moment. But sometimes we have to hear truth, and then once we hear the truth, then we have decisions, right? Do we accept it and make steps to do the right thing that could be life altering, or see if it applies to us? Because
maybe this person's crazy and is just spouting off some kind of crap,
Right.
But if it holds true, and there could be some wisdom gained from that, she was very wise to stop and think on that, rather than just reacting and pushing back against that.
Right. I mean, it's so important, which, that really leads us to our next point about advocating for our own health, right? Because if she's going to a regular doctor, they're wanting to run all kinds of infertility testing. And
she was going to Memphis.
Doctors. And they want to, go through the testing and go through all the things that you do for infertility treatments. But we sometimes in our health, well, I'm going to say all the time in our health, we really have to learn how to advocate for our own health. And as much as doctors are educated and as much as doctors mean well, they really don't get the education in nutrition and
or the lifestyle stuff.
Or the lifestyle stuff.
And they don't have time to learn to know you as a person.
Right.
And they're probably not going to say the truth that needs to be said because they want to keep you as a patient.
Right. And you have to learn how to advocate for your own health, to go outside of the box, to be asking the questions, to do your own research. Because doctors definitely have their place of when you need them, but there's so much that we so quickly run to the doctor, and I know Dr. Amy Beard says a pill for ill, right? And that's exactly what it is. And instead of us educating ourselves, we know our bodies, but
and some people want to use a supplement like that. Well, I have this problem. What supplement do I take? I have that problem. What supplement? We got to go back to the building, and I'm even seeing Amy talk about that now.
Right.
Building foundational health. I've been talking about that for years, and that's how I'm teaching my clients how to build foundational health. Because why run all those labs until you get in the sunshine?
Right.
Until you get your sleep.
Right.
You know if you got correct sleep or not.
Right.
You know if you're eating healthy or not.
Well, sometimes
Well, maybe you don't.
sometimes you have to be educated on those things because,
Yeah.
you know, some people think that they are getting enough sleep. Some people think that, you know, I go to sleep with my TV on or I, you know, scroll on my, you know, phone until I go to sleep, and they think that that's enough, and they don't understand that that's a disruptor within their sleeping.
Correct.
And
Because it's so culturally ubiquitous.
right.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, let's talk about some practical tips for these busy women, because you know my lifestyle. You know I'm a busy person.
You are.
And so I like to give some practical tips. The last couple podcasts that I've done, I've really talked about self-care and how important that is. And, you know, I personally do a good bath soak, you know, 2 to 3 times a week.
Excellent.
Sometimes it's more 2 than 3.
Yep.
I really like to do 3, but sometimes it's just not practical. But I at least try to get a couple times in there where I'm in the soak of my tub. And that's a great time for me. Like I put my, you know, my salt in there and my borax, Epsom salt, and I actually put some magnesium salts in there too, and borax and baking soda.
Yep.
And of course, I always put like some lavender essential oils or something like that because I like it to smell.
You got my recipe right there.
And then, you know, have a candle, and I turn down the lights. It is. And I put on, for me personally, I put on like spa music. I know I think it was my friend Melanie that was here. She likes to listen to a podcast during her bath soaks. And I like to just, I really don't want to hear anyone talk.
No.
I just want to like sit back. I have my little pillow and I just want to soak in a really, really hot tub. And that's kind of my just breathing time. And it's so
Do you
good.
finish that off with a cold?
In my shower, right? Because after being in the salt. Now, every morning when I take my shower, I take a very, very hot shower. But right before I get out, I turn it to cold. And I do a cold blast before I get out of the shower every day. That's every morning. But you were talking about grounding sheet, and I have a grounding sheet, and I love it. So one of the things that I do almost every single night is I have, it's an infrared light blanket that I lay under for about 30 minutes.
Nice.
And then, I mean, by the time I do that, like I'm ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and most of the time I will drift off to sleep while I'm up under that.
Yes. I use a red light therapy every night too. And mine is like about that square.
This is like getting in a sleeping bag. It's like getting in a sleeping bag, and it gets really hot. And so I get out from under that, and then I have my grounding sheet. And I invested in one of those because you told me to. Yeah.
Yep.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel very rested. I feel very rested when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, I do too. I got mine recently. Not when I told you to do it. A year later.
So you talk about giving me.
Let me talk like what you were just now saying about self-care.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not.
It's really a hard thing for moms to do because we're so used to this, put yourself last, put everybody else first. You are burning the candle at both ends.
Yes.
And if you can't see that you are the engine that runs the train of your household,
right,
you're missing the boat. You're the engine. And you can only run that thing so long without fuel, and then the whole train falls off the track.
Right.
So you can't just continue like to drink coffee and burn yourself out and go on overdrive. That will end.
Right.
And your body will scream at you.
Yes, it will.
Because another thing we learned at FDN, every symptom is maybe normal, but it's your body asking for help.
Right.
Okay. And right when the problem started is not when you got the symptom.
Yeah.
The problem started way upstream, and your body was able to compensate for a period of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when your body can no longer compensate, that's when you have your symptoms.
Yes.
And that is when your body is saying, I can't take this anymore. I need help.
Right.
And for you to go and try to take a pill or some other strategy that you're using to ignore the symptom, it's just going to get worse.
Right.
Because your body is going to pop out in 10 different things. If you don't listen to it over here and you shut it up, then here it is going to come out over here. You shut that one up, it's going to come out. And we're talking that's high blood pressure.
Yeah.
That's diabetes. That's neuropathy.
Yeah.
That's, gut issues, which I don't know how many % of the world has it, but it's a lot. Like
Yeah.
I haven't had any clients without gut issues.
Right. Right.
And
But I think women, going back to your point, moms feel so guilty about having that personal time.
Yep.
And it is essential that you do that. I talk about, when you take a plane ride, when you're on a plane and they're going through like the whole safety, if we lose cabin pressure, the mask will drop. And they always talk about putting the mask on you first before you put it on your child. You can't help your family. You can't help your child if you are sick and in bed. If you're having to deal with health issues, you're not at the optimal that you
Right.
can be. And so taking care of yourself and having that self-care where you decompress, it is essential, as a mom, to do that and to not feel guilty about it at all.
And as what you were saying, we know that every person on this earth was put here for a reason.
Right.
And everyone has exquisite gifts to share.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But if they're lethargic or medicated or for any reason not on the top of their game, they can't share that thing.
Right.
And they can't be present in the moment. They're just having blur through life, not like, oh, wait, this is the time for me to say so-and-so, so-and-so. I can't let this go. It's my time to say this or do this thing, or this thing will never be done, because that's my exquisite gift back to the world.
Right.
I'm truly present in that moment.
Yeah.
And you can be that if you're healthy, and you really can't be that if you're not.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And we can make all the excuses in the world, right? We can come up with a lot of excuses of why we can't do something. But when you step back and you understand the importance of taking care of your health, you start to prioritize that. And, you're talking to a mom, raise, kids, 7, we have a large family, 7 kids. I'm a business owner. I have a ministry. I do other things. And, so for me to be the best mom, for me to be the best wife that I can be,
you have to get on your game.
And for me to be the best, at my job, and for me to be a good boss, and for me to do ministry appropriately, I have to take care of myself, right?
Yeah. You have to fill from a full cup.
Yeah.
Pour from a full cup.
Right. Right. And so it is just essential that you have that self-care. Another thing that I think is really something that I want to talk about, and I talk to moms about how to grocery shop, because a lot of them just don't know how. Again, they're a product of the environment that they were raised in. And we talk about easy things. So you have the 15 in the minute. Just give me 15 minutes in the kitchen, right? So what are some of your quick meal prep ideas that you could share, like for our busy moms that go, I don't have time to cook?
You better have a freezer.
Yeah.
And if you have to buy one of those little freezers, about like that holds a lot.
Yeah.
And you can have all your meats and frozen vegetables and frozen fruits in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the side, rice. Like I have no problem with rice.
Right.
Potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, all that stuff lasts forever. Just have it in a bin, you know, in your house somewhere. So these are all foundation things that you can make a jillion things out of. My concept of cooking is it needs to be like one ingredient and seasoning. And if you get all wound up with recipes, it's just mind-boggling.
Right.
You know, you're just making more work for yourself.
Yeah, there's some people that really do need the simplicity of knowing how to cook, like the one ingredient, you know, like I have a steak and I have my seasonings. And then you've got people like me that really enjoy cooking. Like for me,
It's a completely different thing. That's not the 15
right.
minute
It's
thing.
not the 15-minute thing. However, there's times throughout the week that I'm glad that either I've prepped some things at the beginning, right? They're already prepped, so all I have to do. But yeah, I can't lie here. I mean, this is full disclosure. I'll put my husband and kids to work at chopping things and getting things
Oh, wait
set up
just a minute.
before I get home.
If you don't do that,
Yeah.
you take away their opportunity
Right.
to be useful, valuable members of the family.
Well, and
They need that. They have to feel valuable.
kids will eat healthier things if you have them be a part of what you're doing in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If you give them a spoon and get them to stir, if you get them to participate in putting seasonings in things and on things and have them cut. Don't be afraid to give your child a knife and show them how to appropriately cut. Because what that does, and one of the things that I still do, my youngest is 19 and I still do this. I still go, who wants to taste? And, you know, I have 3 boys and a husband. And so and then when my son-in-laws are there or, you know, Mallory's boyfriend, I'm always like, you want to taste? And I'm giving them taste along the way because I cook very healthy meals.
And you're engaging them.
I'm engaging them and I'm teaching them about their different, you know, from my kids when they were younger, about their different taste buds and where different.
Does it need that?
Right.
They have to stop and think.
Right.
And they, at that point, realize that cooking is more than just walking in the kitchen and serving your plate.
Right. Right. And one of the things that we did, I did this a few times with my girls particularly, and we had an exchange student because, you know, we needed one more child in our home. But what we did was they had every, you know, they would have a time where they had to be the ones to go grocery shopping. So they had to come up with a menu.
Yep.
And they had to come up with their own menu. They had to go grocery shopping for it. They had to cook it. And then what we got to do, they learned how to start putting things together, and I would be in there helping them. And they learned how to shop, and
Pretty huge.
they started appreciating all the work that mom does in the kitchen.
Even if they didn't learn anything but what takes the longest to cook? Okay, start that first.
Right.
That's a life skill that they can apply over to other things. And, you know, they have to understand that they are valuable. They can't just sit around and expect somebody to hand stuff to them.
Right. Right.
The house can't work that way.
Right.
So I really love that.
But getting them.
But that's more if you want to take more than 15 minutes.
Right. Right.
Or 15 minutes after I walk in the door because y'all did all this other stuff.
And can I just say, you can go on your phone and you can say 15-minute healthy meals.
Oh, nice.
Right? You say 15-minute healthy meals. Or this is a very interesting thing that I learned recently is you can go on ChatGPT. I know we'll all roll our eyes at this, but this is fascinating to me. I heard someone say this, so I tested it. You can go into Chat GPT. You can download that for free, and you can say, I want a week's worth of 15-minute meals that are healthy and budget friendly.
Oh my gosh. And here it comes.
Wait a minute. And I need a shopping list. It will literally give you the recipe. It'll give you like the recipes. It will break it down. It will give you a grocery list. And it will tell you what your budget is. You can even specify what you want your budget to be. If you say, for this week, I only have $150, it will actually put it together for you with that budget in mind. I know it's way smarter than I am, but we really are losing the ability to say we don't have time because we have so many resources at our hands to help us.
Agreed.
And so if you are going, man, I would love to have 15 minutes in the kitchen. I would love to cook these healthy meals and eat very healthy, but budget's a problem. Or maybe budget's not a problem. You just need the 15 minutes.
Well, I just had to do it because my husband would be like insanely hangry.
Yeah.
And he would want to eat 15 minutes after he walked in the door.
Oh, my dad was 4:30. We had to have dinner ready by 4:30.
No, there's never a time. It's all just when he walks in the door because farming and all the other stuff that we've done, you know.
Well, when he would come to my house, bless his heart, because we don't typically eat till 6:30, 7 o'clock, you know. And he'd be like, I'm like, well, I'll give you a snack, but here
he'd be tapping his foot.
So 15-minute meals, that's great for busy moms. And I just gave you a tool that can help you stay on task and help you with your budget if you needed it to be.
I bet you could even eliminate certain foods for food sensitivities.
Yes.
Right there.
You sure can. You absolutely. You can tell it anything and it will spit out. Like if you put that in and then you have like gluten-free.
Yeah.
Right.
Or grain-free.
Or grain-free.
I would advocate for it.
Right. Absolutely.
Because of nutrient density.
Right. Right. And so if you don't know where to start, that's a great tool to help you get started. And what you'll find is the more that you are in the kitchen cooking, the more you learn, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, a lot
easier. And
then
it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
It really does.
It's I've been cooking 50 years, but when I first started, I remembered what a struggle, like, you know, how do I even, you know, move about in this kitchen?
Right.
You know.
Right. That's exactly right. Another thing that, and we've talked about this, is the sunshine, the rest, the movement. We haven't talked a whole lot about that.
We have not.
And so, you know, when we're talking about things for mom, that the sunshine first thing in the morning, that rest, we've already talked about how important that is. Movement.
Well, kids love to move. So,
yeah.
If you
teenagers, not so much.
But if you, like my daughter and her husband, have a walk every day.
Yeah.
As their little, you know, almost like private time.
Yeah, their time together to talk.
Yeah, that's right.
But but we have to move.
We have to move. And okay, say your knee's hurt and you can't walk. Maybe you can ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get a rebounder and then just go like this.
You got me to get a rebounder. And I'm going to say this. You talked me into getting a rebounder. If you remember, I have it in my office.
Yep.
It literally is in my personal office. And I keep it in there. And so what I do is, if I'm in the office working, about every hour, I take 5 minutes and I go jump on my rebounder. And I really think that contributed with everything that I was doing.
I'm positive
that it really contributed to helping me in my weight loss, is to rebound. And so, yes, that rebounding, I'm a big believer.
A little bit all along during the day. There's research on that.
Yeah. I'm with you 100% on that. I love my rebounder, and I know that it made a difference in my health.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. And
it gets everything.
that's the lymphatics.
Yeah, the
we haven't even
lymphatics.
talked about detoxing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's
my bath is detoxing, but yes, it is. And so, yeah, it gets all of that movement moving.
The
and
lymphatic
flashes.
system has more fluid
Yes.
than the circulatory system. So you've got more liquid circulating in your body than you have blood.
Right. Right.
So moving that is one of your major detox pathways,
Right.
along with sweating, excrement, the normal stuff. People aren't taught about the lymphatic system.
Right.
And so,
Okay. We also have to look at finding hidden stressors in our life.
okay.
Sometimes we don't think what we're doing or what are the activities that we have going on, or that we don't think that they're stressors, but
Well, people think of stressors as an emotional stressor.
right.
And every other stressor, they haven't even considered that not getting sleep at the right time of night is a stressor.
Or we as older women in exercising, when you do heavy exercise, because I remember I used to do CrossFit, and I remember because I took a break from CrossFit when my dad got real sick, and it had been a while. And then when I went back, I was older, and I found that it was so frustrating to me because you're doing this heavy exercise, right? And I could do it.
But you're exhausted the next day.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was my weight was. It was like I could not understand. It did not make sense to me why I was gaining weight when I was working out so hard.
Cortisol.
Yeah, and I learned that exercise was not what I needed to be doing.
No.
Like stretching is what I needed to be doing.
That's right.
Walking.
Restorative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And big difference.
That's right.
Because it was
I
a
go to a
stress
class
on my
right
body.
now. They call it yoga, but there's nothing yoga about it. It's stretching.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing yoga about. We don't chant. We don't do poses. It's stretching.
Right.
And as you get older, your muscles and everything constrict.
Yeah.
And so that keeps the fluid, the hydration within your joints so they don't get stiff.
Right. Right. Well, one of the things that I would like for you to talk about just briefly is navigating wellness when you're over 50.
You just mentioned a pretty big part of that.
Yes.
You have to balance your energy level with what you're coming to the table with.
Right.
And recognize, wait, just like I was guessing that about you, if you're not feeling restored the next day when you wake up, you overexercised.
Right. Right.
Because you didn't recover.
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of a biggie.
I mean, you have to you're doing things differently in your 50s.
And you're paying attention.
Right.
That's the main thing. You pay attention because your body changes
Right.
and you have to flow with it. You're like, well, maybe this is a time in my life when I blah, 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 whatever. Okay. When I was 57, I took up whitewater kayaking.
Right.
And so now I am a kayak instructor.
Right.
Well, that's easy for me right now because it's restorative. Right. It's very decompressing. It's very peaceful. Yes. And you're around, everybody that's around you is smiling. And so you can be creative and come up with stuff that your body will respond appropriately to. And on the food, you could have got away with eating a large pizza and drinking a whole 6-pack of beer when you were in your 30s, but I bet you can't do that now without paying for it. And why work against yourself?
Right.
We want to move forward gracefully, not just beat ourselves over the head all the time. So all the things that we could ignore, don't ignore those anymore.
Right.
You know, you're giving as your kids are younger, and now you have a little bit of space, and you're like, some of the best advice I ever got from a counselor was, be good to yourself until it feels normal. When he said that, I was like, that's about the scariest thing I ever heard of in my life. That was scary. And I'm like, so like, what do you mean? Like, go get a pedicure? He goes, every day, if you want to. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a lot of freedom that you just now gave me. Now I need to know how to apply it.
Right.
And so that I'm comfortable being good to myself.
Right.
And I feel that it's appropriate and it's a part of who I am now.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, I would love for you to speak to the women, speak to our listeners, and just give them encouragement. A lot of times women are just weary, right?
Yep.
We're weary and we're tired. And just a word of encouragement and some final thoughts from you on aging vibrantly and living purposefully.
Wow. Okay. Go back to that thing that I said about everybody coming to this life with something that was exquisitely just them.
Right.
And you ignore that when you're younger.
Yeah.
You do. And you're not used to taking care of yourself, and you're not used to listening to your heart. And as you get older and you have that space, and you can even create the space more, like doing the things that Kandi was saying about the bath and walking and all those times when you feel nurtured, that opens the door
Right.
to you being able to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'll tell you something really sad. I had given, and I was like, this is not working for me anymore. I'm wrung out dry like a wash rag that you would just throw in the corner.
Right.
And so I decided I was going to make a file. And I was going to put things in that file, fun stuff that I want to do. Okay. So I sat there for the longest time and I couldn't think of anything. And I thought, that's pathetic. That's pathetic.
Yeah.
A person that doesn't even have a dream, a person that doesn't even have a hope of doing something fun. So I went in the bedroom, I turned on music, I locked the door, and I cried and I danced. And that was some kind of healing for me.
Right.
And I just boo-hoo-hoo. And because I was like, that's pathetic. You can't be like this and be a balanced, healthy person.
No.
And who would even come to a place in their life where they couldn't even think of what they wanted to do,
Right.
So I had to ponder that for quite a while, but I started pondering it.
Yes.
And I had the space to be able to do something. And if I hadn't, I would have made the space.
Right.
That I told a friend recently that her health is completely falling apart. And she goes, I'm a people pleaser. And I'm like, well, that's going to change or you're not going to recover.
Right. Right.
And I said, if there's no small children involved, then you will stop at 8 p.m. every single night and go do the relaxing stuff.
Right.
And I don't know if she ever did it, but I hope she did.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Like, what is on your list of like your purpose? What do you want to do? Kind of your bucket list. And if you sit there and you think, well, I don't have anything,
it's got to be something.
We're having problem number one right now.
Exactly right. That's got to be addressed.
Yeah, it has to be. And you said having space for that. You have space for things no matter what walk of life you're in. There's different seasons of life. Your season when you're younger with small children looks very different than the season of having teenagers, than the season of having all of your children, gone from the home. So you have different seasons, but even within those seasons, you can make space for some things.
Yep. And I knew it was wrong that I didn't.
Right. Maybe not the things that you could make space for when you have no children left at home, because then you're doing things differently, right? Because your focus is them. But you should be able to sit and write down, these are some things I'd like to do in my life.
Mm-hmm.
These are so, and I'm not talking about career accomplishments. I'm talking
set
about
the tone of your personal, I'd like to be able to go climb a mountain or something. I encourage all these things that you want to do to be in nature or
well, my son and I are about to go jump out of a plane. So we're about to go do that, and I'm really, really excited. Well, when I was thinking about our time today, it took me to some scripture because, I am one that always wants to go to God's word. And I went to 3 John and verse 2. And it says, "Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul." So our health is not just physical.
Correct.
It's spiritual. It's emotional. And it's deeply personal because we're not all on the same health journey.
At all.
No. But we talked earlier, God cares about every part of you. He miraculously knit you together in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and He has given us the ability. Our bodies are so amazing at healing, and He designed us with intention, with purpose, and even when you feel like you've neglected your health, because I've definitely have been there, where I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but sometimes I need a friend to give me a kick in the patoosh, right?
Yep.
And put us back on the right path. Sometimes we have to have that. But it's not too late. And I know some people that where their health feels out of control, where they feel like there's no hope. Really, our hope is in Christ, and He truly does give us everything in His Word to take care of ourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. All the practical things are right in His Word, and you don't have.
And if He didn't do that, I've heard. Well, I'm gonna pray that my disease gets healed. But they don't listen to the people that God sent to them to tell them what to do.
Right. Right. They want to buck that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just going to come plop down from heaven and just drop on my head, not realizing that we are the hands of God here on earth, and we might have gotten that little spark, that little Holy Spirit, say, you need to go say that to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And that person pushes back. Well,
right. We have to use wisdom and really, if we just take it to Scripture and understand how God has designed this earth, and He gave us everything within creation and within ourselves to take care of ourselves. But we've gotten so used to depending on the doctors, depending upon taking a pill when we don't feel good. I have in my own personal life, I have always suffered with migraines, and I refuse to take something just because I have a migraine, because what happens is it ends up dealing with my gut, right? And so what do I do instead? Well, I make sure that there are some things in line, right, to take care of that. Now, I will tell you, when I got my gut health taken care of, I rarely ever get a migraine.
I'll tell you,
Rarely
something happened to me.
ever.
A friend, a church friend, was losing a day or two a week on migraines.
Yeah.
And this was at the very beginning when I was first learning about this, after Tom came down with the autoimmune thing. And I said, I don't want to get in your business too much, but I am hearing a lot of people talk when they give up gluten, their migraines go away.
Yeah.
And she's like, I never heard that, but I'm sure going to try it. Never heard back, never heard back, never heard back. About a month later, she ran across me and goes, oh, by the way, I hadn't had another migraine since I did that. I was like, wow. See,
Right.
that's listening to what you're supposed to say
Right.
and getting somebody's business when you're scared to.
Right. Right. Well, being engaged and loving someone
That's it.
is being truthful and honest and sharing what you know, sharing the knowledge that you know. I know listening to this and we've thrown a lot at you and you may be going, wow, this is awesome, but it's a lot. Just remember that you don't have to just like drink from the fire hose.
We didn't.
We didn't. I mean, it's just number one, start with one thing. Start with prayer. Asking the Lord to give you discernment, to give you wisdom, to take you to the first step for your overall health. Mental health. We have a mental health crisis in our nation, and we have to get to the root of what some of this is. And it is my personal belief that much of it is coming from not taking care of ourselves, that by the foods that we consume, by the environment in which we live, not doing the practical things. And so start with prayer, and then, it's kind of like what I tell people all the time, is putting one foot in front of the other. You just take a step at a time.
That's how I did it.
And when you
exactly. I got something, I did something, and I actually got this from the Holy Spirit. I was walking. I used to walk like 4 miles a day.
Right.
And I thought, what is the one thing that's holding you back? Mm-hmm. The one scary thing.
Right.
Do that thing.
Right.
Do that one thing.
Right.
Muster up all the gumption you got and do that one thing. Get that under your belt.
Right.
Then find the next thing that's holding you back and do that one thing.
And like movement, right? Movement. So let's just take that for just a second. Make it a non-negotiable in your life. Mm-hmm. Make it a non-negotiable that, like you said, that you don't miss a morning going out and getting the sunshine first thing in the morning.
I think that moves the needle.
Make it a non-negotiable. Like, what are some things that are non-negotiable in your life? And start there. What am I going to say is non-negotiable? Well, I have my coffee in the morning, and I'm going to go sit outside in the sun.
That's how we develop habits.
Right.
Is we link them together.
Right.
We link what we want to do with something we already do.
Right. That's right. Well,
and if you have a bad habit, you don't just give up the bad habit. You replace it with a vitality building thing.
Right.
A self-care thing.
Right.
Like, what have I really been wanting to do for myself that just seems so ludicrous and so over the top that I could probably manage it, but do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And you're like one of my favorite people ever. And and I just love you. But, it just doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't. I think we complicate things because we get overwhelmed.
We complicate things.
Right.
Because we are taught the wrong thing.
Yes.
And oh, butter's bad, butter's good, eggs are bad, eggs are good. Now that can go on that other podcast that I said we could have another time.
Yes.
But a confused person is easy to control.
Yes.
I'm just going to let that
That's
lay
going to be
right
a
there.
whole nother podcast. A whole nother podcast. Well, listen, to all of you listening, I just want you to know that you matter, and your health matters, your mental health matters, but most importantly, your spiritual health matters. You want to have good energy. You want to have joy and a future that's worth fighting for. Start small, stay consistent. Like we said, one step at a time. What are those things that are just not going to be non-negotiables? They're non-negotiables in your life. And remember that you're not alone in this journey. I know sometimes as women, we feel alone.
There's another whole topic.
That's a whole other topic.
Women against women.
Yes.
Women beating down women.
Yes.
And I was a victim of that. I can just tell you right now. And it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. That Elene and I looks like we're going to be planning a few podcasts together. So we can actually sit and talk for hours on end. But if this episode has blessed you, if it's been an encouragement to you, or made a difference about your own health, please share this with a friend and subscribe, leave a review, and keep tuning in to Kandi Unfiltered for more bold truth, more conversations that will get you thinking, and everyday victories that you can take in your life. Until next time, take care of your soul, your body, and your people that God has entrusted you with. And once again, I want to leave another disclaimer at the end of this podcast, is that this was for informational purposes only and does not substitute for any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a licensed healthcare provider regarding your health concerns. We're just two friends on a journey sharing our life and what has worked for us. Until next time, this is Kandi Unfiltered.
This episode is brought to you by Pretties and Grace, a faith-based boutique offering high-quality home decor and gifts at prices for every budget. From stunning vases and greenery to statement seasonal pieces for every holiday, plus the sweetest gifts, they truly have it all. Pretties and Grace has 3 locations, their main store in the heart of downtown Benton, along with shops in Malvern and Fayetteville. You can also browse and shop online at prettiesandgrace.com. A huge thank you to Pretties and Grace for sponsoring this episode.